Hey everyone, this is Joseph. So I'm here to give my perspective of the NFL's incentivizing the Rooney Rule. So back in 2003, the NFL implemented the Rooney Rule that would allow for uh, teams or implement or suggest teams to give an opportunity for minorities to be interviewed for head coaching positions, general manager positions, and administrative roles in the NFL and the league as a whole. Now, I guess the NFL wanted to make more news for itself, but the suggestion that you are going to incentivize the rule without getting into details, and if you saw earlier, our Zenny62 vlogger, Vinny, kind of broke it down for you. But I'm here basically to ponder some questions for the audience. Is why would you have to incentivize the Rooney Rule? I don't think that that is something that speaks well of the NFL. If a rule was implemented in 2003, why would you have to incentivize a rule that's an existing rule? Obviously, the NFL, Roger Goodell, felt that teams are finding ways out of the Rooney Rule, right? And so now for the same teams that are choosing not to or choosing not to even hire any minorities, now you're gonna incentivize the Rooney Rule for teams that very well may not even be hiring any minorities, but just the fact that possibly just by interviewing a candidate, I mean, obviously it's a lot more detailed than that, but that's just something in general that something we all need to think about. Why would you have to incentivize the Rooney Rule? That's something we should be doing automatically, especially in this day and age and the society that we're living in now. And the reason why I want to talk about this is that 23 years ago from 2003, right? You had one team and one team only that was way ahead of this curve, right? Before the rule was implemented in 2003 and before this whole quote unquote woke movement was created, you had the Raiders and Al Davis, who hired its first minority coach in Coach Tom Flores. Now, as we all know, Tom Flores won a Super Bowl as quarterback, was an assistant coach, and became head coach in 1980 through 1989. And as we all know, he won two Super Bowls with the Raiders as head coach in 1980 and head coach in 1983. Once he stepped down in 1989, one of his assistant coach, none other than Art Shell became the Raiders' first African American coach. Art coached the Raiders from 1989 through 1994, and in 1990 took the Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders at the time, to an AFC playoff game against the Bengals. And if anybody remembers that game, that is the game that Bo Jackson dislocated his hip, and that was the last game he played as a Raider and his last game he played ever as a football player. Art Shell returned, as I mentioned, back to the Raiders in 2006. And after Art Shell, in 2010, we let go of Tom Cable and we hired Hugh Jackson as head coach, who his previous experience was an assistant coach with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, we all know famously Hugh Jackson traded a first round draft pick for Carson Palmer. But regardless of that, I thought Hugh Jackson was a decent coach. I just think that he didn't have the right pieces, and I thought he should have been given uh, more of an opportunity to coach multiple years to get the team to where he wanted to get them. Unfortunately, he didn't get that opportunity. Now, besides these minority hires as head coach, you also had the Raider organization hire Amy Trask as CEO of the Oakland Raiders in 1997. Now, Amy began her career in 1983 with the Los Angeles Raiders as an intern after graduating law school, and she stayed with the organization. And when they moved back to its original home in Oakland in 1995, she soon thereafter became CEO, the first woman to become CEO of any NFL organization. And that organization obviously is the Raiders. So, again, 23 years before the NFL implemented the Rooney Rule, the Raiders were far ahead of the curve. And that's something that should be celebrated in the NFL. As Raider Nation, we know this. That's why there is no other nation but Raider Nation, right? And so it's something we should celebrate. It's something that should be pointed out every time that Rooney Rule gets mentioned and how teams are following the Rooney Rule. Guess what? In 1980, the Raiders did what the NFL took 23 years to catch up to. So I just wanted to give you that bit of information. Don't forget to keep it here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.